Show business is notoriously fickle. Some actors are lucky enough to have careers that last decades, whereas others struggle to capitalize on early success. If you're curious as to what happened to the ones who fit in the latter group, keep watching to find out. Robert Duncan McNeill owes a lot to Star Trek. One of his most notable roles was as Starfleet Cadet Nicholas Locarno on the Next Generation episode The First Duty. He then became cocky helmsman Tom Paris on Voyager, which would become his defining role. He would ultimately phase acting out of his life and replace it with directing, a skill that he learned over multiple Trek series. On his first day shooting the Voyager pilot, McNeill approached producer Rick Berman and expressed interest in directing an episode as soon as possible. He'd long wanted to direct, but the shows he'd acted in kept getting canceled. So instead of waiting around this time, he wanted a chance to direct during Voyager's first season. He ultimately got his chance with Season 3's Sacred Ground, and he would go on to direct 3 more episodes of Voyager. When that show ended, he took a few small acting roles and then transitioned to full-time directing and producing, with his credits ranging from such shows as The O.C., Chuck, and Blue Bloods. Franco Zeffirelli's 1968 version of Romeo and Juliet was a huge hit at the time, and still endures as one of the best Shakespeare adaptations ever. It was especially notable for casting actual teenagers as the title characters, with Olivia Hussey as Juliet and Leonard Whiting as Romeo. Both earned praise for their performances and were considered future stars. Hussey would indeed go on to have a respectable career, but Whiting all but vanished. The actor became a victim of typecasting, as he played a few romantic leads in smaller movies before becoming jaded. He took a break from acting and tried his hand at writing, penning a series of books and plays that never got published. He lived off of film residuals and the odd voice acting gig or art picture. Interestingly enough, in 2015, Whiting and Hussey reunited on screen in Social Suicide, which was a bit of a social media age retelling of Romeo and Juliet. Despite concerns about typecasting, almost every actor who's played James Bond has gone on to have a solid career outside of their work in espionage. George Lazenby, however, is the exception. The Australian actor played Bond in 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service, only to outright vanish from Hollywood after the movie hit theaters. However, he regrets nothing. Lazenby was a model by trade with no acting experience who bluffed his way through the audition to get the part. Unfortunately, during production, he spent much of his time clashing with Bond producer Cubby Broccoli, which soured his experience. Nonetheless, Lazenby was offered a $1 million contract for 6 more movies, but his agent convinced him not to take it for 2 reasons. First, he believed that spy characters like Bond were on their way out. Second, he believed it wouldn't be hard for his client to find more $1 million roles.
And then my manager was telling me that James Bond was over, that, it was make peace, not love, not war.
Lazenby announced that he was stepping down from the part before On Her Majesty's Secret Service even premiered. He went on to act in minor roles, but he never landed any of those big parts his agent forecasted. In 2017, he told USA Today, "I'm glad I didn't do another Bond because I would have been totally trapped in the film industry and I wouldn't have had the life I had. I wouldn't have had the kids I had. I'm quite satisfied with the way my life has turned out so far." While you might not recognize the name Peter Ostrum, you almost certainly know his face. As a teenager, he played Charlie Bucket, the beating heart of 1971's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I think I'll buy just one more. For my Grandpa Joe.
He performed the role with so much curiosity and joy that we're still talking about it today. Alas, though, he never cashed that golden ticket in for long-lasting stardom. Instead, he disappeared for a while, which is just how he wanted it. After Willy Wonka, Ostrum was offered a 3-picture deal, but he turned it down and eventually left acting behind. Inspired by a veterinarian who took care of his family's horse, he decided to become a vet himself. He got his degree from Cornell University, and he works as a large animal veterinarian in upstate New York to this day.
Am I famous? In my eyes, absolutely not, and I'm amused that everybody's here to talk to me and amazed.
Ostrum has been reluctant to talk about playing Charlie for years. He didn't even tell his future wife that he was in the movie until she was about to meet his parents. But around 1990, he started going to a local school one day a year to answer questions from kids. He also opened up publicly in 2005 when Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was released, and he's since taken part in several Willy Wonka-related promos and screenings. Jennifer Grey had a small but memorable role as the sister of the title character in 1986's Ferris Bueller's Day Off before starring as Frances Baby Houseman the following year in Dirty Dancing. That role earned her fame, acclaim, and a Golden Globe nomination. But it's impossible to talk about Grey's rise without also talking about her subsequent fall. While her co-star Patrick Swayze's star only grew, Gray hit a wall. In 1990, she got a nose job to remove a visible bump. This drastically changed her appearance, and without that distinctive feature, her roles dried up. She called it the nose job from hell, and once said, "I went into the operating room a celebrity and came out anonymous." Gray has gotten plenty of work in the ensuing years, including a recurring role as herself in the late 90s sitcom It's Like, You Know, but she's yet to land another big role. She's still grateful for her part in Dirty Dancing and the joy it brings people, but that doesn't mean it's not repetitive. At an anniversary event for the film, she joked, "I wish any time I went into a nice restaurant and asked for a table, they said, 'Well, I'm sure you don't want one in the corner.'"
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Avery Brooks played Benjamin Sisko on all 7 seasons of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, going from the commander of a backwater post to a man on par with any admiral in Starfleet. Though it was never quite the ratings hit as The Next Generation or Voyager, Deep Space Nine is now regarded as one of the best Trek series. Sisko was unique among Star Trek leads. Besides being the first black lead character, he was more emotional and a more obvious misfit than the average Starfleet officer. Brooks stands in stark contrast to his fellow Star Trek captains and commanders. While most remain active in showbiz to this day, he stepped away from the limelight as he took some time to raise his daughters and became a professor at Rutgers University. He's taken on similar movie roles, but he primarily performs in theater. He never landed a big on-screen role again, but he doesn't seem to want one, and he doesn't give many interviews, though by all accounts he seems happy with where his life is now. The Wire's Proposition Joe, as played by Robert F. Chu, stood in stark contrast to the show's other drug lords. He was far more relaxed, verbose, and manipulative. He was also one of the show's more sympathetic characters, despite ostensibly being one of the bad guys. He's one of just a handful of street-level characters who appeared in all 5 seasons. But after The Wire ended, Chu only had 2 minor movie parts and disappeared from public view, entirely by his own choice. He lived his whole life in Baltimore, the city where The Wire took place. He was born there, he went to college there, and he died there. He was a fixture of the Charm City's theater scene for a few decades. He also found time for some TV work, including small parts on Wire creator David Simon's previous shows, Homicide: Live on the Street and The Corner. During his time on The Wire, he taught acting at the Arena Players Youth Theater. In fact, he got 22 of his students roles on the show, and he coached many of the series' new and inexperienced actors. After the show concluded, Chu could have moved to New York or Los Angeles and found even greater success in Hollywood. Instead, he stayed in Baltimore and continued to teach acting. The city was too important to him, and he stayed there and helped people hone their craft until his death in January 2013. In the early 90s, Eric DeRay played Leo Johnson, the first true villain of Twin Peaks. As an abusive husband and the most obvious suspect in the death of Laura Palmer, Leo terrified the town and had every member of the audience waiting for his comeuppance.
I don't know. He's the obvious one.
DeRay could have had a long career in show business after Twin Peaks. Instead, he vanished, and it's not entirely clear why. He was born into a showbiz family. His father, Aldo Ray, was a go-to tough guy actor for decades, and his mother, Joanna Ray, is a casting director who's worked extensively with David Lynch, the creator of Twin Peaks. After Twin Peaks was canceled, DeRay spent years playing smaller roles in obscure movies before outright vanishing from Hollywood around 2002. He hasn't made a movie since then, and he rarely makes public appearances. In 2012, he did briefly resurface, though, when he was wrongfully suspected of starting fires in Los Angeles. Zach Galligan burst onto the scene in 1984 as Billy Peltzer in the hit movie Gremlins. His performance proved his value as a young actor with plenty of potential, but despite that massive early success, he's done little of note since then. Galligan knew early on that executive producer Steven Spielberg's involvement meant the movie would be a hit, an assumption that proved to be correct. Within 3 weeks of release, he was recognized worldwide, everywhere from local restaurants all the way to South Africa. After Gremlins, Galligan went to college at Columbia University. After school, he moved back to Los Angeles hoping to restart his acting career, but those 4 years away had really sapped his momentum. He narrowly missed getting cast in such movies as St. Elmo's Fire, The Rocketeer, and Platoon. He was able to reprise the part of Billy in 1990's Gremlins 2: The New Batch, which bombed in its original release but has since become a cult classic. He's spent his time since then still acting, as well as writing and teaching acting. He's never quite found that next big role, but given how his life has turned out, he thinks that may actually have been for the best. Dan Lloyd was unforgettable as Little Danny Torrance in the 1980 horror classic The Shining, though he never found the role all that scary. Audiences may jump at Danny riding his bike up to those creepy twins, but off-screen he played games with the actual twins between takes.
Come play with us, Danny.
Even when Lloyd watched the movie years later, he wasn't horrified. Instead, he was reminded of all the fun he had on set. It was his one big role before disappearing from show business. But don't worry about him, as he's doing just fine. Lloyd tried out for a few more roles after The Shining, but he had trouble landing anything, so he just left the business entirely. He now teaches biology at a community college in Kentucky, where he learned the hard way not to tell his students about his past, lest they disrupt class with chants of Red Rum. He doesn't give many interviews about his acting days, though he has revealed that he loved it then and he's happy with his life now. And in 2019, he had a cameo in the Shining sequel, Dr. Sleep. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, more Looper videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.